Hello, Jeff. It's Tuesday.
Nice to see the glory of the gods from the future.
Alright, old business. First, obviously, pass along my congratulations to our cohort for her awesome PhD news. I'm gonna be going and getting one of them things myself, in a different part of the country. Second, thanks for the bio on Margaret Fuller. I'd heard her mentioned in, different classes and things before, but I didn't really have a lot of details. Or at least, if I did, I'd forgotten most of it. So that's cool. I look forward to future biographies. Today I just kind of wanted to take it easy because, well, we're going out to dinner here in a little bit. So, gotta hurry. Also, I just kind of wanted to discuss a nice little meaningless having to do with playing cards. I find it interesting that playing cards have become an object that has a lot of different sort of thematic connections running through my life. One of the sort of idle connections is, of course, the fact that playing cards were originally created here in China, where I really am. My tour videos will finally start up soon. I've been distracted. And you didn't give me a specific deadline on posting those, so it doesn't count as not fulfilling the punishment from back in the thing. But yeah, the first recorded, mention and appearance of playing cards was, I think, in the 9th century CE here in China. They're also heavily connected with dominoes. Interesting side note, the word in Chinese for cards or dominoes is the same. Pai? Something like that. Pronunciation. Essentially, the only way you can tell the difference is if the person specifies whether it is essentially bone pie or paper pie. So that's interesting. Also, just following the trail of interest in my life. When I was in junior high school, I started messing around with, card magic, all that stuff. And this, of course, led me to read about different magicians and things like that. Specifically, of course, Harry Houdini, who before he became an escape artist started out focused on cards. He was card man. And then of course he later became famous as an escape artist and also as a notorious skeptic debunking mediums and things like that. So all around awesome. Also there are a lot of other interesting connections that branch off from Houdini. One of his ghostwriters / biographer, Walter Gibson, co-wrote one of the first magic books I ever owned, also created The Shadow, who most people know because of the radio show or maybe the Alec Baldwin movie. He's also a very long-lived character in the pulps. Gibson wrote over, I think, like 300 Shadow stories, which, although it was a pulp magazine, they were like novel length. The guy was crazy prolific. And I mean, The Shadow is not only a big character in the pulp era of fiction, but also progenitor of Batman and that sort of detective hero thing. The pulp Shadow didn't have the whole cloud people's minds make him invisible. He was essentially Batman who, instead of having sidekicks, had a sprawling network of agents everywhere and was just fine with killing you or driving you crazy until you killed yourself. The weed of crime bears bitter fruit. Crime does not pay. Another person who ghost wrote for Houdini? H.P. Lovecraft. Published a story called, I think it was Under the Pyramids. I forget the details. Most of my Lovecraft books, unfortunately, are back home. But it was this story about him being sort of tied up in Egypt and thrown into a tomb and unearthly horrors and whatnot. Also, Lovecraft was, I think, supposed to collaborate with somebody else writing in Houdini's name a book called, I think, The Cancer of Superstition. I could check this out on Wikipedia, but I'll check it later. I'm in a little bit of a hurry to get this done today. So yeah, connections to my interests in pulp stories, superheroes, magic, escape artistry, skepticism, all sort of connected to, this dumb little pile of stuff. Wow. Probably should have thought that through. Connections to favorite writers or particular interests of mine, sure. But also there's a sort of family connection. Playing cards was one of the ways that I would sort of have fun with my grandpa. He taught me how to play blackjack specifically. That was kind of our game. And that was always fun. And also, whenever I would go hunting with my dad, we would play poker with some of his friends, and I would lose pretty badly. But thankfully, when you're a kid, you don't really have a lot to lose. So yay. One of the other weird memories that pop up in my mind when I start thinking about playing cards happened when I first moved off to college and started with my bachelor's degree. And that is, suddenly, Texas Holdem was like the only card game anybody ever talked about. And even though that's, I guess, kind of later in life, but it's really my first major memory of that recency illusion, where suddenly you hear about something and it's new to you, but it's everywhere. And that's what it was like for me. People are suddenly talking about Texas Holdem, and it's on TV, and there are like big competitions everybody's talking about, and they're playing in the dorms. And even, I remember one of the games I played when I was an undergrad. It was a GameCube game, a Western called Gun. It was like Red Dead Redemption, but earlier and not as good. I remember, or at least I think I do, I have to check this again, the card game in that was also Texas Hold'em. So I mean, like my entire life, all I ever known was, like 5-card draw, or the various, alternate versions thereof. It was a 5-card draw. I knew blackjack from my grandfather. I knew baccarat from James Bond movies. And then all of a sudden, Texas Hold'em dominates the world. It was crazy. A related one to that is the frequency illusion. The frequency illusion is when you hear something the first time and suddenly you see it or hear it everywhere. You don't necessarily think it's new. It's just you hear it, you haven't heard it before that you recall, and suddenly everyone's talking about it. Versus the recency illusion, where you think that something is very recent because you've just heard about it, and maybe it plays into that frequency illusion where you just hear about it, suddenly you see it everywhere, and you think it's something that just appeared. Although I still hold with the fact that I don't think red velvet cake existed before I heard about it the first time. I'm reasonably sure that is evidence of some sort of weird time travel damage, because that was not there when I was a kid. And around the time I was like teenager, maybe late teens, suddenly everyone's like, oh, red velvet cake pops, and let's have all this around and pretend that it's been here all the time. No. Time Bandits or something. Oh yeah, Time Bandits. I still need to watch that. Is that on Netflix? And I guess the last one is cards can also be very easily tied to the fact that as I've become an adult, I've become much more interested in learning about more complex mathematics than I was when I was in school and not very interested at all. So things like probability, for example, in terms of just dealing a hand of poker, can get very crazy very quickly, which is a lot of fun to read about. And also the different functions for counting cards and things like that. I mean, really the crazy probabilities inherent in dealing with just a simple deck of cards is one of the reasons why magic tricks seem so impressive, because people assume, you have some weird understanding or you're manipulating things in a really complex way, when of course sleight of hand is not about complex. It's about simple but misdirecting, which is always fun. Anyway, so that's it for me today. Cards have this little weird thematic connection to various things in my life. It's not inherent, obviously, because I'm making my life up as I go, but it's still kind of fun to look at. So my question is, do you have any particular mundane seeming objects that happen to show up and connect a lot of disparate parts of your life that you could imagine into some kind of theme if you were, I don't know, writing a biography or otherwise trying to kind of narratively frame your experiences in life? I'm not doing another trick, I just like playing with cards. What? I'm out of practice. That's all I have for today, just sort of random ruminations. I look forward to, if it's another Feminist Friday or whatever you do this week, keep it up. See you in the future.
They will see you in the future.